Okay, types of testing. There are three types of testing. There's the stub testing, black box testing, and white box testing. Okay, first let's take a look at stub testing. Now, basically, stub testing involves the use of dummy modules for testing an application when actual modules are not available already. What that basically means is that you have not completed writing the entire program for the application. So you have an incomplete program, only parts of the program have been implemented, and you want to test it at this stage when the program is still not complete. So there are some modules which have not been written as yet. Okay, let's take a look at an example which will help you understand the concept better. For example, you were developing a game, a mobile phone game, for example, Angry Birds, and you have these buttons: the play button, the quit button, the settings button, the up arrow button, right? Ideally, when you should press the play button, the game action should start, right? But as of now, you've only developed this user interface. So when you press the play button, the code that should open up the game and the action should start is not there. So that code has not been written as yet. So what are you going to do? You want to test this user interface. What you're going to do is you're going to write some dummy modules. So when the play button is pressed, that dummy action will take place. When the quit button is pressed, that dummy action will take place, right? Because the code has still not been written. Okay, let's take a look at what I mean by dummy action. What you're basically going to do is you're going to write these dummy procedures which we call the stub procedures. For example, this procedure, play button pressed, what is it doing? Inside of this, what you've written is play button was pressed, so you're not doing anything significant here, but whenever the play button is going to be pressed, this message is going to show up. Likewise, when the quit button is pressed, this message is going to show up. When the settings button and the up arrow button are pressed, their messages are going to show up. So this code is not doing anything significant. This is a dummy code because the actual codes have not been written as yet. When the play button is pressed, what should happen has not been written as yet. So what you do is you write these dummy procedures or the sub procedures. Once you've written these dummy procedures, you test them also. So you write some sort of a code that should call these stubs, right? And this is what you've done here, and this is just a small piece of code that is showing what happens. If the button ID is play, meaning when the play button is pressed, then we are calling this play button function. And then if the user pressed a button which had a button ID of quit, then call the quit button pressed function. Quit button pressed procedure. We've not implemented it as a function, we've implemented it as a procedure. Likewise, when the settings button is pressed, call this method. When the up arrow button is pressed, call this method, right? So I hope you understand. So we write the stubs and then we write some sort of a code through which we can call these stubs. Let's take a look at another example which is there in your book. See, what he's done here is he's written a few stubs. So these stubs basically still have to be implemented. There's a stub called enter new student, a stub called amend details, a stub called print list of students, for example. So this is probably going to print a list of students, and a stub called search by name, which probably eventually when you're going to write the code is going to search a name, whether that name is there in the class or not. You have to go through that list. So all of these for now have been written as stubs. They're not doing anything significant, but they've been written as stubs. So what you've done here is you've designed your menu and you are asking the user for a choice. Menu choice equals console.readline. This is where the user is going to input a value which is going to be stored in menu choice. Okay, let's see what happens. If the menu choice, we're using select case on menu choice, if the menu choice that was entered by the user equals 1, if case is 1, then call this stub enter new student. So this stub is called and this whatever action is there is carried out. If the user pressed menu choice was 2, then amend details method is called. This stub is called. So what we're doing here is, once again, based on our options, we're calling different stubs, right? And that's how we're testing the stub. So this is one of the things that you do. Remember, stub testing is done when your code is still not complete you want to test your partial code. So what you do for the part of code that is missing is that you write those stubs, right, which are dummy, right, they're not doing anything significant, may have some messages inside of them, right, simple messages, and then you test, those stubs.